Welcome everybody, this is How to English, Teach and Learn with Gav and Em.
It's a podcast about teaching and learning English as a foreign language.
All opinions stated are personal and references will be given when necessary. It's Friday!
Hi, Gav.
Or actually, it might not be Friday. It could be any day of the week.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Em. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. You?
I'm very well, thank you. I'm very excited because you know what?
What?
It's episode 5.
Of season 2.
And this episode is all about...
We decided to call it What Works and What Doesn't.
Oh, okay, that's an interesting approach.
Yeah, it's quite a general title. So we're talking in the sphere of English teaching and learning. So what works, what approaches work, what, I don't know, have you thought of it in any other way apart from what approaches work?
I'm just going to ramble about teaching and learning and, I'm going to give some tips. I'm going to put some questions out there. There may be some challenging situations. But overall, I feel it's going to be a successful pod.
It's going to work, is what you mean?
I hope so.
So can we first just maybe talk about how do you know if it's working or it's not working? And by it, I mean the lesson.
The learning.
The learning, the lesson, the whole package. Like, do you have a good way of identifying if it's working or not?
Yeah, I think so. Lots of chatting, smiling, engrossed in the work, producing language, not uncomfortable silences where people are waiting for other people to talk.
I agree. And I think that it's maybe even something you can't define. It's just a feeling you get as well. Like just flowing. And like the other day, I was aware of the time a lot, and I was aware of the sort of artificial nature of it, and I was feeling a little bit like, this isn't working now. I'm not sure if the students felt the same way or whether it was just me, but it was momentary. It was good because after about 10 minutes I felt like, well, I didn't think about it again, so it was obviously working again after that. But there was a kind of moment in the middle where I thought, I'm not sure this is working.
And
I hate that. I hate that feeling.
Did you assess what the problem was and then try to solve that problem?
Yeah, I think it was this sort of turn-taking thing where everybody was being kind of nominated to speak in a very, like I say, artificial way. And so I actually decided just to put myself in there a bit more, rather than, because I'd already stated I wanted the students to ask the question that was on the exercise page, which was already written. And then I said, and then make your own question, which was a great concept, which is what you do in a normal situation, in a conversation. But they just couldn't naturally, quickly produce the question. So the conversation was very awkward and long and with a lot of pauses. So I decided instead of maintaining that idea, I just started making my own questions to generate a more natural conversation. And then after a little while, the students naturally had more questions to ask when they're not like put on the spot to make a question. They can actually just think normally. Okay. I would say
it's natural.
So it's getting the balance right, I think, for
you just redirected the conversation for a while to sort of pick up the tempo.
Yes.
And then once that was established, the students were able to take over again.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. If it's almost when they feel a bit like, okay, I'm in a lesson now and this is what I need to do. I need to make these questions. They suddenly close down. But if they're just having what they consider to be a normal, relaxed, fun conversation, sometimes you need to forget about the learning, I think, in a way, as long as, you're correcting them and checking what they're saying as a teacher. Yes, as a teacher. I just think that that's something I'm quite aware of when it becomes artificial and forced in that way.
But then it is a good way to start the lesson, maybe. You've got some questions that they're asking and answering each other. And then, as you say, then hopefully they will take over and it will become more natural.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit obsessed with lowering my TTT, my teacher talk time. So I always feel like I'm talking too much, and I need the students to produce it. But they don't always have that ability. So I think you have to know when to step in.
Yes.
So like you say, up the tempo.
Alternatively, when to step back.
Yeah, again, that also can kind of kill the vibe, I suppose, if you just interrupt them when they're in full flow. So, yeah, I agree.
That's it. So stepping back will allow the students to take over and have a good old conversation and deal with the language.
Yeah, and as you mentioned I don't know which episode it was, a long time ago, but if you're sort of interrupting to correct something and then the conversation's just like stopped because you've said, well, everyone, let's just look at this grammar point that somebody's made wrong. You kind of just don't want to continue after that. It's like, well, okay, this isn't a real conversation, is it? This is just for like language sake.
It is, yes. And unless it's a grammar lesson, which is that kind of very traditional style where you're breaking down, you're looking at the form, what's the use, how do we construct these, let's fill some gaps. If it's not that, then yeah, I think it needs to be freer.
Yeah, so very controlled practice has its place, but I think when you're practicing natural language, you need to just try and keep it going.
I think this naturally takes us to relatable contexts, relatable situations. So,
for example,
you present the student with something they can talk about.
Okay, so that would mean you need to know the student enough to know what they're interested in.
Yeah, or just topics that everybody can talk about.
Are there universal topics, Gav, in the world of English teaching?
Yeah, well, we all enjoy talking about our family.
Do we?
Jobs.
Okay.
Going on holiday.
Yeah.
How'd you get to the post office?
That's my favourite subject. Yeah, well, I agree. There are some safer topics that people will have something to say about.
But it has to be something they can talk about. So don't choose a topic that nobody knows anything about.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
You're talking of if you're not following a book of any kind, just you're going into the lesson with a topic.
Well, even if you're using the book, if there's a topic in there that's not something the students know anything about, then it might not be a great topic for them. You might not find the students are willing to engage.
Yeah, it's hard to say that, though, because sometimes something that is very abstract or obscure is amazingly fascinating, and everybody says, oh, well, I didn't know anything about that before, and now I do. And that's another point of the lesson, isn't it? To learn something about a topic, maybe.
It can be. I'm just saying there are some topics that are not very interesting, and don't feel that you have to do every page in the book, or don't think just because you're interested in it that your students are going to be interested in it.
I agree.
So find out what they're into, and also maybe if you could introduce something that's perhaps interesting to them, that could be good.
Yeah.
I'm not saying only choose the very safe topics, no.
Okay, no, good. But as well as we were talking about topic-based, I find just saying to my students, what do you want to talk about, doesn't tend to work. I don't know about you.
I have the same experience.
Yeah. So at the same time, I don't want to say, right, today we're talking about this. So I've started giving 3 options. Would you like to talk about this or this or this?
That's a lot of preparation. Does the student do as much preparation, Em?
No.
They're not?
No.
Because I wanted to bring this up. Maybe this will come up later, but I jokingly say to my students almost every lesson, so what preparation did you do for today's lesson? Obviously, you were walking to the classroom, you were logging into your favourite platform for video conferencing, and you just thought, right, I'm going to have a chat with Gav for 60 minutes. What would I like to talk about?
And what's their reaction when you ask them that?
Oh, they laugh and say, oh, that joke again.
Yeah, and they're not really getting the point then.
Not really.
Maybe you need to be more direct.
I won't say that for all of them. Sometimes students do have topics, and I like talking about the things the students introduce. But quite often they expect the teacher to prepare everything.
Yes,
and to have,
do.
and like you said, you're preparing 3 topics now. That's a lot of work. And why are you doing it and not the student?
To be fair, I think because I'm online, it's quite nice because I do have lessons prepared already from the previous month or year.
Well, if you were an inexperienced teacher, you might not have that luxury.
That is true. You are correct. But you can always open a book at a different... Like, if you know the book, you can always look at a different
Would
section.
you like page 7, page 11, or page 19? You decide.
Let's do a lottery style. Yeah, well, it could be potluck. But coming back to what you said about students preparing, I think... There's a mixed feeling for me with that. If a student says, yes, actually, I've got this report I have to do, can we discuss that? I mean, that initial feeling of fear that I have when they do that, I just think, okay, yes, of course we can. I don't know if I can do it, like if I have the language or if I know what you're going to be talking about, but it's exciting. And I think the time does go very fast in those lessons where you're not planning it yourself as a teacher.
Why does the student expect you to be able to correct their emails?
I said reports and things, but I mean, I think that you're there as a kind of an aid just to check the language. I think a lot of students see that as a role as the teacher. I think that's fair enough.
So we're not talking about complex reports and emails answering questions about financial statements and stuff. The students are just asking you to say, should this be present perfect or is this past simple?
No, it was the first thing you said. I think it's just like they've got to present something to their board of directors and they're very nervous about it, so they want to make sure the language is right and it makes sense.
But do you sometimes get students asking you to check things that you really don't know and maybe they're asking too much of you? Well, that doesn't work.
No, but that's kind of what I said, that immediate feeling of, eek, maybe, yeah, we can do that, no problem, but I'm not sure I've got the skills or the knowledge, but it's challenging. So when you say about the student preparing, that's one aspect of them preparing in a way, but I don't have many students that say, yeah, well, I was just going to suggest we talk about this TV programme or something like that. I don't know why. Why don't they? I mean, this is their time to do whatever they want, but in my experience it doesn't really work if I say so. What do you want to talk about today?
Just going back to my point, when students ask you to correct their emails or reports or to listen to their presentations, in your experience it's something that you can help them with?
Usually, but there are times where I've had to say, I'm sorry, I don't know what that means, or I'm not familiar with that expression for that business, that industry.
I'm just making the point for any new teachers and also for students. If you have something that you want to show to your teacher, show them. Just be prepared that it could be too difficult for them to help you with, but they can help you in a general way.
Yeah, exactly. So they really have to look at it from a language point of view rather than, do you really think that these figures add up properly or something like that? Yeah. What else? What else doesn't work? I think we've already discussed...
Don't laugh at your students.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah.
Why would you?
No, that's not very nice.
Yeah. And they shouldn't laugh at each other, and they should just, create a nice environment where you're happy, and mistakes are okay.
Yeah.
No wrong answers.
Experiment. Have fun. Enjoy it. It's a safe, happy place.
Yes.
Body language is quite important.
What doesn't work, Gav?
Sitting back and being disinterested, looking at your mobile phone and checking your Facebook while your student's talking to you.
Arms crossed.
Looking at your watch. These kind of things. They don't work.
Yeah, I agree.
This is bad body language. Positive body language, Em. Lean in, open eyes, big smile, and just look very interested.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping it's something you haven't got to do consciously, that it's just there, that you but you can read it as, you kind of see, this isn't
You might need
working.
to exaggerate it a little bit when you're in the classroom, when there's so many people there. You need to...
As a teacher?
I would say as a teacher.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd say you need to, and online as well, because like subtle things like winking.
Winking? What?
And raising an eyebrow. I mean, you need to exaggerate these a little bit because it's not so easy to see the person on the other side of the screen.
I don't know about winking, but okay. Yeah, I think the eye contact thing is a hard one, as we've talked about before. I think it's just how do the students know who you're looking at if you've got a group? So I think just looking in the direction of the camera is nice.
I don't do that. I still look at the student on the screen, and
Well, that's a tricky one, I think, online. But I agree, just making sure you're looking, even if it's so obvious. I think we're under the illusion that because we're online, we can be doing things and not be noticed, checking our mobile phones or, playing a game in the background or checking email. But you can see the eyes there, the eyes are dead. They're not, the student even is just sort of in a different place, and you can see that really quite quickly. So it doesn't work, people. It doesn't work to multitask.
And students, I would recommend that they listen to each other and they stay engaged in the conversation or the activity, because it's not an opportunity to start checking your email as soon as your classmate is then answering questions or something. I think you need to just listen. I kind of get a bit annoyed when I go through, I don't know, answer these sentences, questions or something. We're on to number 6 and I say, okay, now you tell me the answer to this one. And they say, oh, what number are we on? And I think, that's not good. You should be listening.
So how do you keep that focus?
I mix it up. I say, hey, student A, what do you think about student B's answer?
Yes.
And that keeps them on their toes.
Yes, I agree. Just constantly be including everybody. Yeah, that is a good tip. Get everyone involved. I definitely think is the best thing that works.
Yep. Lots of hand gestures.
Really? Can be a bit distracting.
One of my students was pointing at the screen during the lesson. I couldn't see what they were pointing at. They just kept saying, here on the screen. And I was thinking, yeah, but that's your screen, not my screen.
Oh, that's kind of cute, though.
Yeah,
that means that student was very involved and focused.
That was brilliant. I really liked that.
I'd say as well, going in cold doesn't work. Hello, good morning, nice to see you. Right, today we're going to practice third conditional.
Oh.
Doesn't work.
Are there kind of like studies that you're following for this?
Anecdotally, just in my own experience, it's going to be resisted, that kind of cold into grammar directly. There's a bit of pushback on that. Or here's this worksheet I've just made. I'm going to share my screen after the first 5 minutes.
I think students expect you to have a little warmer, some sort of how you doing.
Yeah.
How's your day going? What you've been up to?
Exactly.
That kind of thing. Do you remember what we did last week?
Yeah.
Let's quickly revise some of the language from last week.
Yeah.
Did you do your homework? No? Okay, well, can you do it for next week?
Fine, all that. And then, I was watching this YouTube video yesterday. I just want to show you because I thought you might be interested. Oh, and you see the point that person was making, and isn't that an interesting point? Oh, and what kind of language were they using?
What was that sentence?
What was that?
Started with
third?
If.
Yeah, was that third condition?
If plus had. Hold on a minute.
Interesting.
If plus had plus the past participle would have past participle. Wow, that looks like third conditional. Well done, class. That's brilliant.
Why were they talking about third? Oh, because it's the past and there's nothing you can change about that.
Remember in the video that person said that thing about that thing which was all in the past?
Exactly. Right, now here's a worksheet. Boom. You see? You don't even realise, and then you're in the middle of it.
I'm not sure you need the worksheet at that point. You could just say, have you ever experienced this?
Well, you could, but I think that would depend on the class. I think you might want to do a little bit of gap filly things.
You might do some training, write the form up on the board or in the chat.
Yeah, but it's this natural progression into something.
I was feeling that then. I was really feeling it.
Yeah, you see? It's a bit easier for everyone that way.
Yeah, but this must come from experience, Em.
I guess so. I think you can implement this immediately in your teaching style.
Wow.
I remember when I was a new teacher having that pressure on myself. Oh, I have to get, this into the lesson, and I have to teach this thing, and I have to do it in a very academic way because that's what teaching is. So I think, maybe in the earlier days it was very dry and a bit like, we're going to get the form right. We're going to stay here until we get it right, and you're not leaving until we get it right. And I've got to make sure my board work's perfect. Now it's a bit more like a bit more organic, and let's just sort of think about the meaning, and then we'll get into maybe the form.
And sometimes that works, and sometimes it doesn't.
Well, I think it works quite a lot of the time. Why are you saying it doesn't? Why wouldn't it work?
Well, I'm just saying that with some classes you do need this dry introduction to language, and other times not. Know your students.
Okay. I haven't got many that want the dry introduction into language.
I do, yeah.
Okay. All right, well, fine. Of course, we're always going to have that caveat of there's those people that do want that.
There are exceptions.
Of course there are, read the small print. We're not saying everybody. So what else, Gav? What else works?
I think I've just got teaching tips, actually, but what works?
Can I
Oh, right,
say,
okay.
I think as well, at the beginning of my teaching time, I was so enthusiastic about teaching songs or books or films and things like that I thought everybody liked. I just assumed because, it was a big blockbuster film in the UK or an American pop song that's on the radio all the time on my radio station that I listen to, that automatically meant that everybody in the whole world knows that song and loves that song or that film. And it doesn't work, because the amount of times I've walked into a class and said, this one, everybody's singing, and students have looked at me like, never heard of it, don't know it.
Okay.
So I think it does work sometimes.
And then you find out that they're really familiar with a very obscure song.
Well, maybe, that's what I mean. Maybe it's better to ask, before you plan that music or film lesson, to ask what sort of films the students are watching.
Yeah.
Or you just, if you're in a different country or you're teaching students from, a certain culture, that you say, well, I know that there's this famous film or this song that was very important in your culture or your history. And then you get to sort of experience something different yourself. And it might not be in English, but I don't know what to say about that. But
translate the song.
Yeah, that's nice. Exactly.
Write the dialogue in English. All these things.
See?
Yeah. But you find even in other countries they will sing songs in English from time to time. And you might find there's an activity that you can use from that.
And a lot of songs actually are done in a different language but with the same music, so they might know the
covers.
Tune, but they won't know the English version.
Yes, that's a really good tip. I like that.
Yeah. What did you want to say? You had your hand up.
Oh no, I was going to say that. That's exactly what I was going to say about use stuff from their own culture because they love it.
Yeah, that's it, and I love it too.
Write new words and language in a book.
Okay.
That works.
In a book.
Yeah.
Notebook.
A notebook.
Students. We're talking about.
Write new words and expressions. Write example sentences in a notebook.
Yeah, I think the online thing is interesting now because we have this amazing ability to record everything in the chat boxes. But what can students do with that chat box if they've got a list of new language? You're saying actually write it by hand into a book.
That works for a lot of people.
You could copy, paste it, print it.
Speak to students and they can, if you're having an online lesson, you can still have pen and paper next to the laptop.
Yeah, I just feel like the chat thing is it's like a message on a chat message. You never look back. You never go back to...
I encourage my students to look back.
Well, I'm not sure they do though, Gav.
When I start the next lesson, I say, well, let's have a look at the chat from last week.
Oh, well, that's good as well. That is the best way because that's still sort of visible on the screen a lot of the time, unless you're a guest or something and then you've lost everything as a teacher. But okay, you look back at the last lesson, but that's just the last lesson. Do you scroll back to can you look at February 21st and tell me what that word meant? How far back do you go?
As far back as you need to.
But there's a lot there.
Maybe.
I mean, I'd love to think that my students print these things out and, have a documented version of it. I just don't think they do, though.
This is my tip.
Yeah, well, it's a good
I
tip.
think it works.
It would work, hypothetically, if they did it.
If I had written it, it would have taught me English.
Okay, good. Yeah, I agree, though. That is a good tip.
Yes, and it works.
Okay.
All right, what else doesn't work, Em? Come on, give us some more.
What else doesn't work? Well, we've sort of said, I think, being too critical, being maybe overcorrecting doesn't work. Just everybody stops talking.
Mm-hmm. Because you do get students who say, can you please correct every single mistake I make?
Yeah.
And then you do, and then they don't really want to talk very much anymore.
That's it. That's the problem.
But I agree. If you say to your teacher, please correct me as often as possible, because as a student, you don't really know how often you're being corrected. Maybe the teacher is ignoring some of your mistakes and you think, oh, my teacher's not doing what I want them to. So do tell your teacher, do explain that you want them to correct as much as possible, but remember that you will make a few mistakes and the teacher doesn't want to stop you completely in your tracks.
Yeah, it's a hard one to get the right balance. Pushing through the lesson that maybe isn't working, doesn't work. Maybe just if the students are distracted, as we've said, or maybe they're stressed, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Everybody's got to be in the right mood.
Yep.
Or otherwise it's just pointless.
Yeah.
Even though you get through your checkbox of things, they're not going to remember it.
Yep. I wrote fun.
Fun, yeah.
Have fun. Enjoy your lessons. Enjoy the time with your classmates or with your teacher. Also, choose the right teacher.
Yes.
Don't just accept the teacher you have. You can just fire them.
Yeah, you've said this in the past. Okay.
Is it not
it's
good?
A bit extreme. I mean, make it work. If it's not working, try and make it work. I don't know about this whole just you're fired Alan Sugar style.
No?
No, because,
we nearly got through the entire episode without one reference.
But I just think, it's about life isn't always perfect. You can't just say, well, I quit.
Well, make it perfect.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, just try and work at it. Don't just
Fire your
say,
teacher.
I've had a 5-minute bad experience, now you're fired. It's
No,
a long and
I'd
very
say
important decision to say, it's not working.
It is, but there are so many teachers out there. If it's not working, accept it, move on, find the teacher that works for you.
Yeah, okay. But you sound like it's quite a cutthroat business in that
I
way.
think it kind of is.
How I've had students for years.
Well,
It's
you're obviously
lovely.
their favourite teacher.
I don't know about that. I just think that there's a different quality to it when you've had people for a long time and you know them very well. I don't know about this sort of switching it up constantly, although I do think that's good too, to have a lot of different styles of teaching and methods,
Yes.
accents, whatever.
I absolutely agree.
What else works? Making it personal.
Yep.
Making sure that it's relevant. like you
Relatable,
said.
use real examples, talk about real things.
Yeah, just you're doing an email lesson. Ask the students what their email is about, or if they've got an email they want to share, and then it's just real. It's something that they're going to be interested in more than something out of a book.
That works for me.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I think that's everything from me.
Yeah.
Gav.
So to wrap up,
We just wrapped up. We don't
Yeah.
need to wrap it up.
make
again.
it relatable. That was really, I like that.
That's
I think
the
that
third
was
time now.
I think that was my favourite tip actually. Just to wrap. Yeah. Okay.
To wrap up again. You're going to keep wrapping up. It's going to be like pass the parcel.
It's like Christmas again.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we found what works
Yeah.
and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Would you like some feedback from our listeners?
I was just thinking that if anybody's got any other tips that work or experiences of what didn't work, I'd love to hear it.
I'd love to hear it too. Maybe people could find us on Instagram or Facebook or on our YouTube channel.
Are we on Twitter?
Sometimes, yeah. And they could maybe in the comments just add things that work for them
Yeah.
or don't work for them. I'm really curious to hear some of their tips too.
And if you disagree with what we've said, I'm happy to hear your comments.
Yep, exactly. I'd like to hear some feedback too. So that's brilliant. Okay, so Em,
Gav,
Where can people find us? On Spotify, Apple Tunes,
Apple Tunes, iPlayer, is it?
and Anchor, and all of the other places where you get your podcasts.
And YouTube.
I'd mentioned YouTube
you did
earlier.
Say YouTube. Okay, sorry.
Thanks, Em.
Just repetition. We didn't say. That works. Lots of repetition.
I've finished now.
We're on YouTube.
All right, see ya.
Okay, see you next time. Bye.
Bye.